What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Open Great League once again, and the team that we're going to be taking a look at today is Steelix, Primeape, and Araquanid. Now, the core between Steelix and Araquanid is extremely strong because Steelix, as a steel and ground, is weak to fighting, fire, and ground, whereas Araquanid, as a bug water, resists both fighting and ground. And it neutralizes the fire with its half water typing. And then Primeape as our safe switch, which is what we're taking a look at today, just a super hard hitter. We've paired it with some bulk so that we can save all of our shields for Primeape, flip switch when we need to, and just go absolutely ham. Today I'm running it with Ice Punch because I haven't got a chance to run Ice Punch Primeape yet, so I wanted to showcase it today. So without further ado, a special thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel, Benny Hemlock, Dr. Remustache, and Sohan Patil, as well as the legend trainer members on this channel, Big Burden, Andrew Pitten, Moosachu, Noodleman, and Speedster. Let's hop into some battles. Alright, into the first match, we have Steelix into Scizor. Now this is a pretty good lead because bullet punches are resisted, whereas Thunder Fangs are not, and my opponent is clearly core broken because they are not switching out of this matchup, which makes sense, right? Scizor is double weak to fire, which means they're going to have a water type most likely in the back, and clearly this water type doesn't want to switch into a Thunderfang Steelix, and we're just going to take this in the zero shield scenario, which is absolutely fantastic. My opponent does throw this Trailblaze, we do live that on 1 HP. In comes a Lapras. Now Psywave is resisted here and our Thunderfangs are super effective, so I'm going to connect with the Psychic Fangs, go for the farm down, but my opponent instead switches into Dedenne, and now this is going to be a really tricky endgame because we are ABB weak to Dedenne, so I'm forced to swap into my Araquanid here. Araquanid will just take a parabolic charge. My opponent goes for the charge move right away, and they're going to outpace me to a second charge move. Now there's nothing I can do about this. There's no situation where I can flip switch or ever outpace, so I'm actually just going to fully sacrifice the Dedenne and hope that Primeape with 2 shields can sweep this endgame. Because they threw right away, it means I will be able to outpace. However, my opponent makes a really nice catch on their Lapras. However, that's okay because Primeape, even though it does take super effective damage from these Psywaves, we have a huge pacing advantage. We can get to these Rage Fists and start spamming them out. My opponent will commit the shield. I'm going to double shield if I have to, go for the full farm down, and that'll put me in a great position. Actually, my opponent throws an alignment, allowing me to get the full farm down, come out with like a Rage Fist and a half for the Dedenne, and we're already 2 times boosted, make it 3. Here comes a 3 times boosted Rage Fist at the Dedenne, and their defense is no longer raised because they switched out. So Primeape able to sweep that endgame despite a really tricky Pokemon in the back. Morpeko. This is another good lead because Thundershock and Aura Wheel are resisted, but my opponent safe switches into a Jellicent, and once again, I don't have a good answer to Jellicent in the back. So I'm actually just going to stay in this matchup because both of my Pokemon in the back have decent matchups into Morpeko. Primeape hits super effective with Karate Chop, and Araquanid hits super effective with Bug Bite and Bug Buzz. You see a little bit of lag there, not really sure what happened, but it looks like my fast move did eventually go through, which is fine because that means I can get the full Thunderfang farm down, come out with a Psychic Fangs loaded, and in comes a Wigglytuff. So my opponent is extremely weak to the Thunderfang Steelix. That connects, and now I think I can actually get to an Earthquake as well. Their defense is lowered at this point, so this is going to do massive damage if my opponent does not respect it, and they do not. They let that go. In comes the Morpeko. Morpeko will be met with the Primeape. I want to at least grab 1 shield here before they take me out, and they end up baiting with a Psychic Fangs, which is pretty unfortunate because that means they do pace faster. However, a Psychic Fangs would not have been enough to pick up the knockout despite it being super effective. It's just not a very hard hitting move. My opponent only farms up to a second Psychic Fangs, understanding that the Dark type Aura Wheel is resisted, and that actually nearly KOs, but I'm going to get 1 more Karate Chop through, and that Karate Chop is going to make a world of difference because Bug Bite is super effective. So we might have to go for a catch here, or maybe we won't because, oh my goodness, the fast move damage is absolutely insane, and yeah, my opponent just resents the match, and we are able to take that win. Neutral lead in the next match. Obviously we have the fast move pressure in this matchup except my opponent has the charge move pressure. So 1 Hydro we can live, especially from the non-shadow. If it was the shadow I might shield that up and then go for a catch on the second Hydro, but that's not going to be the case here. I think I'm just going to overfarm and now go for the catch, just playing out the zeros, soft losing it, switching in, and catching on the Araquanid. One thing, an Araquanid is met by a Bastiodon, so this is a very difficult matchup, and there's not really anything I can do about it. One thing I will say is that I do think Araquanid with Water Pulse and Bubble Beam is the way to go. It's just the pacing of Bug Buzz is really slow. I just don't have any charge DMs at the moment. So unfortunately, I'm stuck with all of these movesets. My opponent is able to maintain switch, but unfortunately what that does for me, or for my opponent, or unfortunately for my opponent, is that I can like basically fully Karate Chop farm down this Bastiodon. I can commit one shield, but I'm going to leave boosted and with energy. So that's going to put my opponent in a really difficult situation, but in comes Marowak. I am now going to farm up past a potential Ice Punch, and now I'm baiting with a Rage Fist. My opponent does commit the shield. I'm going to do the exact same thing. My opponent is trying to commit to the farm down. I'm baiting again, farming up past the Ice Punch, making it to a Rage Fist, and now I'm 2 times boosted. My opponent knows I can make it to a charge move. All I have to do is shield this up. I'm not at 1 HP, so I can live that through the shield. I would win CMP even if they did throw, so Rage Fist actually does pick up the knockout, and now we have our Primeape, which can get 1 boosted Karate Chop through, which does some pretty sizable damage. Now I can come in with the Steelix. We're going to be able to just farm down his entire team with these Thunder Fangs. But why would we do that when we can go for a BM Earthquake on a 1 HP Feraligatr to close out the game? Into the next match, we've got Steelix into Dragonite. This is a fantastic lead because Dragon Breath is resisted as well as Dragon Claw, whereas Thunder Fangs are neutral and so are Psychic Fangs. Of course, I'm not running Breaking Swipe in this matchup, but my opponent doesn't know that. So I'm going to go for the Psychic Fangs right away. I do grab a shield, which is pretty nice. And now my opponent has farmed up past a superpower here, so I will respect this damage. It is the Dragon Claw bait, which is pretty unfortunate. And now in comes Clodsire. Now, I don't know if you saw on my sims for this team, but we are triple weak to Clodsire in this team. But one of the great synergies between Steelix and Araquanid is that you can lower your opponent's defense and then come in with Araquanid, and suddenly these bug bites are doing so much more damage because their defense is lowered. That said, they are still resisted in this matchup, and they look it. However, my opponent is on Sludge Bomb instead of Stone Edge, which means, while yes, their pacing is better, they don't have super effective coverage, and I can live 3 Sludge Bombs from the Clodsire. And look at how much damage that Water Pulse did because of the Psychic Fangs debuff. Watch this. Araquanid lives in the red. Can we get the full farm down? We can, and we live on 1 HP. Araquanid basically going to give the opponent 0 energy here. They get 1 Bubbles worth on the Azumarill, but Azumarill is really difficult for my remaining 2 Pokemon. What I am going to do here is I'm going to come in with my Primeape. I'm going to go for a catch onto my Steelix, hopefully wasting a lot of my opponent's energy and banking loads of energy for later. And why that's important is because as soon as I grab that last shield, Primeape can just go absolutely ham with that Rage Fist spam, even if it's in a bad matchup. And we'll have an Ice Punch for this Dragonite if in case they decide to commit a shield here on the Psychic Fangs, and they do. Can we get the farm down? It looks like not quite. My opponent has to go Superpower here in order to pick up the knockout. Steelix will live a Dragon Claw. It lives it on 1 HP. That is absolutely massive. Psychic Fangs will be enough to pick up the knockout here. And now in comes Primeape, and look at how much energy we have. My opponent only has 2 bubbles worth of energy. They dumped it on the Steelix, and what that allows me to do is go for 2 in the move on the first because of 1 turn switch, and then 1 in the move against my opponent on the next, and I can still outpace because 2 Karate Chops is going to outpace 2 bubbles, and just like that, all that banked energy coming in clutch. Primeape is an Azumarill counter confirmed, and we are able to take the win. Okay, finally a really tough lead in the next match, but we have 2 better answers in the back, so I'm going to safe switch into my Primeape, and we are met with a Blastoise. Now, Blastoise is not an answer to an up energy Primeape because we resist the rollouts, which means I can always flip switch here if I want. I do connect with a Rage Fist, and here comes Rage Fist number 2. My opponent actually commits the shield, but at this point they're at the back-to-back charge moves. But I'm going to predict that my opponent is going to go for 1 in the move, and so am I, which allows me to get some nice energy in here. I'm going to commit both shields in this matchup either way, so had they thrown that on alignment, I would have been fine. I would have just gotten an extra Karate Chop through. That said, they did not. which means it's going to be a race, but PRIMEAPE is not going to lose any races here. It has absolutely lightning fast pacing. It picks up the knockout. We flip switch. What's in the back? It's a Lapras. Lapras now going to be met with a 4 times boosted Rage Fist. This is going to do massive damage to the Shadow Lapras, and it does. And now it's just the Credilli on the lead. And yeah, my opponent, triple weak to PRIMEAPE. I don't really know what they're going for there, but we are able to take that win. Into the next match, another good lead. We've got a Pidgeot. My opponent safe switches into Credilli. Now Credilli, obviously we have a pacing advantage here, and Karate Chops are super effective, as well as Ice Punch. And as soon as that connects, I'm like, you know what, I don't care what they go for here, I'm going to go for a Karate Chop farm down. And if they go for the Rock Tomb and I can't get it, I can just Rage Fist on CMP and boost my attack back up. But back in comes the Pidgeot. We have an Ice Punch loaded, so my opponent might actually have to respect this with a shield, and they do, which is massive because they have no play into our Steelix. There's no point for my opponent to be shielding here. They should absolutely be sacrificing their Pidgeot, but look at how much damage that Ice Punch did. That is crazy. And what's in the back? It's a Diggersby. So unfortunately for my opponent, I just triple hard countered them, but we are able to take the win. They're also triple weak to ice, which is crazy. Into next match, bit of a neutral lead. We've got Steelix into Fortress. This is good in the sense that their fast move pressure is resisted, whereas ours is neutral. However, they do have super effective coverage with either Sand Tomb or Earthquake. However, my opponent goes for a double resisted Rock Tomb instead, which is a bit of a strange play. It means they can survive this Earthquake a lot more comfortably, but I can now just come in with my PRIMEAPE and pick up the knockout. But unfortunately, PRIMEAPE is met with Dedenne, and Dedenne, despite it having only electric, fast, and like quick charge moves, there's not really anything I can do to flip this matchup. I don't know, maybe I can flip it in the ones, I'm not really sure, but I am able to get to the back-to-back here, but I think that Thundershock that goes through will be enough to pick up the knockout, and they actually survive that, which is pretty unfortunate. However, they're completely walled in the matchup against Steelix, so I can just come in here, absorb this energy, hope that my Araquanid has play in the back, and then hopefully take home this game. So I'm gonna, back in comes the Fortress. I'm now just gonna go for a Psychic Fangs. May as well lower their defense so I can get the Bug Bite farm down, but they end up committing the shield, which is a bit of a strange play. I'm gonna stay in, force them to throw their energy. Sand Tomb, Earthquake, Rock Tomb is actually not enough to pick up the knockout. That's double resisted, and now in comes Araquanid, and unfortunately, this has just been a very tough game in terms of alignment. They've got a Drifblim in the back, and this is virtually impossible to win. Even with the Icy Wind bait, my opponent goes straight Icy Wind because they know it's resisted, but I have to start shielding something. I've got 2 shields left in play. They end up committing their final shield. I now know this is another Icy Wind, but I have to shield this because the fast moves are adding up. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bank a Water Pulse and go for a catch onto the Steelix. I'm unsuccessful. My opponent reads that catch, but I'm able to get the full farm down. I come out with a Psychic Fangs loaded for the Drifblim. This is going to lower their defense, and now I can make it to the Water Pulse, and Water Pulse is neutral damage, but on the debuff defense of the Drifblim, it actually picks up the knockout, and somehow, some way, we were able to take the win. Another Scizor, really shocking. We're just going to stay in this lead matchup and play it out. I can obviously take a Night Slash, no problem here. Night Slash doesn't even put us in the yellow health range, which is nice. I'm overfarming pretty significantly here, and actually I'm going to go for a catch this time onto my PRIMEAPE where Night Slash is resisted, and that's pretty nice. They actually get the boost, but unfortunately they pivoted out right away. But there's the Azumarill that we wanted to bait out, sorry, and that is absolutely massive. There's just so many Scizor plus Azumarill teams out there. It's not surprising that we're seeing this core. It is very, very strong, but my opponent allows me to get to 2 Rage Fists, and I'm like, you know what, PRIMEAPE hasn't done enough yet, so I commit the shield. It is the Ice Punch. What I'm going to do instead is bank that Rage Fist for later, catch the next Ice Beam onto Araquanid where it is resisted, and hopefully just get a aggressive farm down. But unfortunately, once again, alignment not in my favor. My opponent has a Carbink in the back, and frankly, just because they have so much fast move pressure that's super effective here, I don't think I can even, because I'm so slow to the charge moves, it does not matter. They can just throw, they can pick up the knockout. I have 2 Pokemon that resist Rock remaining, which is good. But the issue is here, I already have a lot of energy on Steelix. Sure, I can farm up to nearly 100 energy and pick up the knockout with the Earthquake, especially if they're not expecting this. Even with 2 shields left in play, it's going to be a difficult one because this Azumarill is going to be hard to get rid of. Back in comes the Scizor. I can once again make a really nice catch on my Primeape, but that ends up wasting all my energy that I banked from earlier. And now, despite me being able to get the potential farm down on the Scizor, I come out with back-to-back moves for the Azumarill. I'm lowering their defense by 2, hoping that my Thunderfangs will start adding up enough and get the farm down before their bubbles do. Can we get there? And no, we cannot, just barely. We go down with a shield, and unfortunately we do lose that game. Into next match, Shadow for Alligator this time. So we're just going to stay in the lead. I'm going to shield up a Hydro because it is the Shadow for Alligator this time. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click the move right away. And unfortunately, my opponent makes a really nice catch on, well, not a really nice catch, but a catch onto Dunsparce. But now I can just come in with my Primeape. They are going to outpace because even though we didn't see the animation, they did get a rollout sneak because of how I threw. That said, I can overfarm as much as possible here. Now go for the knockout with the Ice Punch. And I believe I make a mistake here. They live this on 1 HP, and I should just click the Rage Fist because Rage Fist is double resisted. It'd still be able to pick up the knockout here, and it would force my opponent to make a decision about whether they want switch or shield advantage. However, I can now come back in with the Steelix. Yes, I've given my opponent switch advantage, but Steelix actually ends up core breaking my opponent. These Thunderfangs are absolutely tearing through the Talonflame, and now with their defense lowered, they're going to be doing even more damage. So instead, my opponent pivots into their Feraligatr, clearing that debuff, which just allows me to come in with a Araquanid here. I can soak up all of the energy, no problem. Araquanid is extremely bulky, and these Hydros do absolutely nothing. And what that allows me to do is come out with a Water Pulse loaded for the Talonflame. Do they respect the damage, or do they call a Bubble Beam bait? They do respect the damage, and now it's kind of a race. I'm going to let this go. I think Fly obviously will be enough to pick up the knockout here. It is super effective, but now it's Thunderfang Steelix versus the Talonflame, and because we grab that final shield, that means this Psychic Fangs will connect, and we can just go for the full Thunderfang farm down before they get to the back-to-back moves, and we are able to take this win. Into next match, bit of an awkward lead. We've got Thunderfang Steelix into Dragonair. Now the reason this is awkward is because they have Aqua Tail coverage, which is super effective, but my Thunderfangs are resisted. But it kind of goes the same way. Their fast move is resisted on Steelix, and we do have potentially access to Breaking Swipe. However, it seems like, well, we know that that's not the case for our Steelix. And when I end up catching on Araquanid, my opponent ends up switching into a Lantern. Now, Lantern will be met with a Bug Buzz, so this is where it's nice having that Bug Buzz coverage, and my opponent clearly doesn't know counts because they throw pretty much before I even get to the Water Pulse. Thunderbolt will be enough to pick up the knockout there. They did not bait, and now in comes Steelix. I'm hoping with their defense lowered from the Bug Buzz that a Psychic Fangs from this range will be able to pick up the knockout, and unfortunately it does not. I still don't know what's in the back. Am I going to commit the shield? No, I am not. I'm going to save shields for my Primeape. In comes the Dragonair. Dragonair now will be met with a Psychic Fangs. Do they call the Psychic Fangs bait? They actually do, so good read from my opponent. In comes the Primeape. And now this is where I start shielding because I need to start boosting my attack and making Primeape extremely threatening. My opponent is already at the back-to-back moves, but I'm going to shield both. I'm going to go for the full farm down, and now it's just about what is in the back, and it's a Furret, which is absolutely massive. This is why my opponent did not want to switch out of that Dragonair lead, and now I can make it to an Ice Punch. And now, because they let that go, it's very easy to just bait here. Just start going Rage Fist after Rage Fist, boosting my attack. My opponent throws right away, knowing that my switch timer was not quite up. But I can survive a Trailblaze here, get a few more Karate Chops in, put them in Thunderfang farm down, and now I can Thunderfang farm down the Dragonair as well, not throwing the charge move because that would give my opponent a chance, and we are able to take the win. Into the final match of the video, what a surprise, another Scizor. We're just going to stay in this matchup. My opponent ends up safe switching into a Credilli, and I make a bit of a different play. I end up safe switching into my Araquanid this time because if I'm assuming that it's another Azumarill in the back, I kind of don't really care about switch advantage, and instead what I need is an energy lead on Primeape to start boosting up my attack with those Rage Fists, and then just going absolutely ham. So I'm going to let this go. I connected with the Water Pulse. It looks like they're in farm down range for my Primeape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to instantly come with my Primeape. Can I get the Karate Chop farm down? It's going to be close, and we get there just barely. Now back in comes the Scizor. Scizor will be met with a Rage Fist. This is neutral damage, but Scizor is extremely lasty. They actually let that go but I'm already at a second Rage Fist, so Rage Fist number 2 going to connect. Is my opponent willing to commit the shield? They are, so maybe something weak in the back. I can now get the full farm down. Is it the Azumarill or is it something else? Night Slash gets shielded up. It is the Azumarill. They did have enough for a Trailblaze, so I'm not sure why they baited there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to farm up to back-to-back, throw one boosted Rage Fist, bank that other one for later in case I need it, come in with a Steelix, but my opponent, I guess, realized how much health I had on the Steelix and decided to resign the match. But yeah, that's PRIMEAPE for you. I haven't really showcased it on this channel because I hadn't had one built for the longest time. I decided to build one a little while ago, but I never got a chance to play it. And now that Open Great League is back around, I was like, you know what? Let's give this thing a try. It makes a really great core with Steelix because obviously as a fighter, you're weak to Psychic, Fairy, Flying. So Steelix as a steel resists all of those. So a pretty decent core there, and then same with Steelix and Araquanid, as I explained at the beginning. But yeah, makes a really great safe switch. Honestly, if I was going to use it again, I think I would rather use the Shadow, because the way I was playing with it with Ice Punch, I think you want the Shadow. If you're going to run the non-Shadow, I think Close Combat is the way to go. But yeah, that's going to be it for me from this video. Sorry if I seemed extra tired. I'm recording this super late, and I have work super early, so burning the candle at both ends is a little bit unfortunate. But yeah, that's going to be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.